Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Altar of Stars. I'm very grateful that you found your way here. My name is Teagan West. I'm a ritualist, astrologer, drum maker, and ancestral lineage healing practitioner on Haudenosaunee land, so-called upstate New York. And my own ancestors come from Ireland, Syria, Lebanon, Sicily, and Anishinaabe territory in what is now known as Canada. And my ancestors are a big part of my work and the readings that I offer here. So they're a synthesis of astrology and divination, but also animism and land connectedness to form this kind of intersection of cultural repair through these ancestral knowledge systems. And so if you like what I share here, you can find my work over on SUBSTACK at the Altar of Stars, where there's a pretty big archive at this point of weekly astrology readings in the form of podcasts that I've been sharing for a couple years, as well as tarot spreads and different ancestral rituals for each of the Wheel of the Year holidays or the new and full moons every month. So find me over there if you're interested in going deeper. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy this reading, and if you ever desire to work together one-on-one, there's opportunities to do that. You can find the links for that in the show notes. But yeah, enjoy, take good care of yourselves, my friends. Thanks for being here. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Altar of Stars. This is going to be a little glimpse, a little quick and dirty look at the month of June 2026. I had the proper introduction here to YouTube over the course of May, and I was purposefully posting the full-length videos for the month of May that are usually the full-length recording of the Altar of Stars podcast that you can find over on Substack. And so I decided this week I'm just going to do an abbreviated version of the month ahead, but the full version, if you want to listen to that, is over at the Altar of Stars on Substack. I'll probably start posting the same kind of like preview versus full length for patrons of these spaces just to honor my own capacity in that. And I'm so appreciative of all your support of this, new way to share the work. So I hope it's been supportive for you, genuinely. That's why I do it. And I want to share a tidbit about the month of June, because June itself is a month in the year of 2026 that is like this little deep breath. It's this little moment where we can actually take a beat, integrate all that came before this month, which was quite a lot, right? There was a lot of ingresses, there was a lot of shifts. It was like the first wave of all of this fire and air energy that kicked into gear. And June is this little intermediary period where we actually have some really beautiful astrology and we don't have too much drama going on, right? The astrology that's occurring this month is actually quite benefic and gentle. So I'll talk about that. But it's also like a little pit stop before we get into the rest of the year. Because honestly, from now through the end of 2026, like probably until about November, July through November, there's like a second wave of this growth arc that we've been kind of initiated into. And in the Week Ahead podcast, in the full-length version, when I was recording it the other day, there was an image that came to me, a memory really, from when I was traveling through Egypt and like into the Saharan desert. And there's nothing for hours, right? You're driving and there's nothing around. But every now and then, there'll be a little pit stop, a little random gas station in the middle of the desert, very like dystopian, but also magical. And it's like where we would go and rest and reboot for the next leg of the journey. And so I really feel like June itself is that little pit stop in the desert where you can go to the bathroom and get some water and some like strange Egyptian sweets to refuel your spirit and like keep you nourished and vitalized for whatever is to come. And so taking advantage of this, right? The whole point is like, this is an opportunity to take a minute and actually resource ourselves. But in order to do that, we have to intentionally take it in, right? Those moments, especially when there's so much astrology going on and so much just going on in the world in general, it's not separate from the astrology, right? I hope you can hear these robins. There's a need to actually intentionally take moments of pause when they become available to us. The reality is, there's just so much moving through this year. There's so much change, there's so much turnover and churning that's kind of going to be the MO, right? Like the overarching vibe is like, okay, we are in a process. That's it. That's the theme of like really, especially 2026, but the years to come. We are in a process. And I know like everyone I've talked to is in it. They're all in their own ways. Like so much kindness to the fact that we are actually in this together. And that doesn't mean that it's like romantic and glamorized. It's actually really rough to be in this deep of a personal and collective process at the same time. It's like there's no relief from it, right? Because everyone and everything is also in that current of change. And so I'm making a case for like June is an opportunity. It presents an opportunity to intentionally take a breath and resource ourselves. Try your best to do that. Like, don't miss it, you know? For me, astrology isn't just happening at us. We're participating in it. And so when there's these pockets of presence that open up, if we're still in this like swirled out mode, we're going to miss it. That's just the reality. And there's this sweetness, there's this opportunity I feel to like actually feel held by the process we're in and see the hand of grace within it, to actually catch a glimpse of like, oh wow, what if this is actually working in my favor? Can I believe that? Can I open myself to that possibility? I have spoken with folks lately who are in deep and painful and confusing processes of change in their own personal lives. And I know that we're experiencing that collectively at the same time, but the moment we cast our own process against that collective backdrop, it almost like loses the sacredness a bit, or the preciousness of what we ourselves are navigating, and that's an important part of our own mythology, right? But I've spoken with folks, and I have been delighted to see that even in the midst of such great change and confusion and disorientation, there has been a felt sense with everyone I've spoken with, some of which, like some folks are going through really challenging things. I'm sure, yeah, that's not to like create a value judgment. It's rough and it's all going to be subjective to our experience. But what I've been so moved by is people's ability to actually be like, I just have a really strong feeling that this is the way it needs to be. The courage it takes to actually be able to see that. Grace, divine grace, wears the mask of discomfort and eagerly awaits for you to recognize her. She's playing hide and seek with you. And if you see the hardship as if you're being punished, if that's how you interpret it, you'll miss the real mercy that's also there. And again, that's such a slippery slope, what I just said, because that's also the grounds for where spirituality and religion get really warped and manipulative. And so I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to create this platitude of like, everything's working out best case scenario, because that's just not how it feels. And we so quickly diminish our own suffering in the face of that. And so for me, it's like, how do we hold that very fine line, that knife's edge between actually feeling the intensity of change and the grief of that? Oh my God. Over the weekend with the full bloom moon, I was so surprised by the wave of grief that hit me. It was the actual reckoning with like, wow, okay, things are going to be different now. And there's no going back. And so I have to grieve the death of what was in a really big and real way. And that's the only way I can actually move from this. But even in the midst of such grief and keening and suffering, I can feel the intelligence and the wisdom that's working through those conditions. It's like you have your finger on the pulse of the force of love that is not meant to keep you cozy and comfortable, but the force of love that is actually here to help you evolve and grow and actualize at a really deep level, at a level that goes far beyond our human ego and its very limited stories about this whole life experience. I sense this, and I don't say this lightly. I feel so easily, especially with like new age semantics, this could get so lost so quickly. But I truly have had the felt sense that there is, like, we've opened up a deeper dimension of some kind of karmic undoing and unfurling that is inviting us into participation, and the only way that the evidence of that is in the intensity. The evidence of like, wow, okay, we're really dropped into something that's like the river beneath the river, soul level pulse movements beneath the surface. And it's marked by how intense it is to actually be experiencing that. And again, like, I'm a little masochistic, but I'm not trying to glamorize the intensity. You know, I'm very skeptical of my heavy Pluto signatures that like need intensity to feel alive and like to feel real. And so I'm saying all of this with the awareness that some folks out there might just straight up be suffering and not actually able to get the finger on the pulse of grace and sublime, support and those forces that are at our back through it all. But my hope is that eventually you will be able to feel that with whatever may come. And so let me bring it to what's happening in June that I think affords us, perhaps that's a better way to say it. It's like, yes, June is a moment, it's an opportunity to like refill our tank at the pit stop and like take a moment. But I also think it affords us a peek behind the veil of all of this surface level churning that can be really like overwhelming and disorienting if we just look at it at face value. It's like, oh shit, my whole life's getting turned upside down. Like that's a lot. That can easily overwhelm. But for me, it's also, these conditions in June with so much benefic energy and also a lot of like Cancerian watery energy, they also afford us a peek into like, oh, I caught a glimmer of the play, the divine play. I caught a glimmer of her playing hide and seek with me and peeking behind the veil and saying like, I'm with you. I know it's hard right now. I know things feel confusing. I'm with you. Trust, like stay with it. And to me, that's what the benefic energy, when we talk about it in an astrological sense, that's what it's actually making available to us. I'm not super interested in the binary of like benefic being good energy and then malefic being bad things. There's so much more nuance there that gets missed when we just drop it into that kind of platitude, right? But really, what I sense, just like being human and big wheel keep on turning, like just moving through this karmic trip that it is to be incarnate, I feel that what the benefics actually do, those energies, those planetary ancestors, allow us a glimpse of grace. Because what they're not doing is making the suffering go away. And I think sometimes, myself included, when things are hard, we cling to that, like, oh, make it good again. Make the pain stop. And there's so much humanity and humility in that desire. But I sense that's not how any of this works at this point. And there's that tried and true, real saying that, the grief that we feel by whatever form, it's not always grief because we've loved. There's many different forms of grief. It doesn't ever go away. We just learn how to grow around it. And so I feel that benefic energy actually creates the conditions for us to grow our capacity and our resource. It helps us to accumulate some of the, capacity is not really the word that I want here. Something there like resilience to stay with it and have a bigger container to actually hold what the malefics bring in, which is just the reality of life and hardship. And we can't escape it, right? So rather than ping-ponging on this binary of good and bad, malefic, benefic, for me, I'm posing that actually what the benefics are allowing us to do is get a glimpse behind the veil, to actually see the mask of discomfort that divine grace wears in that play of hide and seek, to actually have a moment of revealment, of exposure, of saying I see you in this. The mercy of that. It's intense. But it allows us to then go back into the hardship with the knowing that there is some hand of support hidden within it. And we have it's not in our mind, we have the felt sense, lived experience of that compassion, that source or force of compassion that is working through the conditions that are present. Love as the force that's trying to evolve us and help us to grow at a deep soul level, at a level that, in my opinion, language can't really reach. Only experience can. And that's not to sound poetic. That's just the truth of it. So what's happening in June? Just the high level points here. First and foremost, this week, the first week of June, Mercury will enter Cancer, which is sweet. It softens things. Mercury has been ruling Uranus in Gemini from Gemini. It's like a recipe for frenetic energy and too much mental sphere. That the balance, I feel, has been a little tipped out of proportion, a little too top heavy in that way, where it's a lot of fire and air element, which we know what that does, can tend to dry out and drought, literally, drought the resources that allow us to feel fortified and balanced at a body, mind, spirit level. And so Mercury entering Cancer softens that frenetic energy a bit. It brings it down into the heart, into the sensing, feeling body, into the waters. I talk a lot about that on the full week ahead reading, if you want to go listen to me yap the whole way about that. Because Mercury in Cancer, it's going to make some aspects that help really to enter June like the end of a log ride. We're a little disheveled, but at least we made it to, softer waters. Sorry if y'all can hear the sounds outside. I do live in the woods, so it does get a little wacky. So then the main benefic event that I really want to center here in this little mini reading is on June 9th. We have a conjunction between Venus and Jupiter. This is a once in 12 years event because it's occurring in the place of Jupiter's exaltation. This is the final weeks of Jupiter being in Cancer. We've had this transit for the whole past year, and so this conjunction of Venus meeting Jupiter at the very final degrees, 25 degrees of Cancer, is where all that Jupiter has accumulated in that place, which the accumulation in the place of exaltation, say that 10 times fast, in Cancer, that is where Jupiter can accumulate the most resource, to the point of excess, as we've seen. There's some awesome reflections that folks have shared about the politics of Jupiter in Cancer being a reflection also of the intense American Christian white nationalism thing that becomes too idealistic and too much of a trope, right? So there is a point of excess with that kind of utopic dream world that it can create, but it also affords a drawing in of a lot of blessings, a lot of boons. And so the actual benefic conjunction itself, that day, Venus activates it, right? Venus comes up to Jupiter and is like, let's it's almost like I'm picturing a piñata. When you hit a piñata and it finally breaks open, right? We've been banging this thing all year long, and now Jupiter's finally ready to like give us the boons and the blessings. So may it be that way. And I highly recommend, some of you already know this, but I highly recommend doing ritual on that day. It is a once in 12-year event for this to be happening in the place of Jupiter's exaltation. And so it's not to be missed. And there's a fixed star that's right in the fold of that conjunction, which just so happens to be the little dog star, Procyon or Procyon, however you pronounce it. I think it could go either way, honestly, because it's all translated from Arabic, like mistranslated from Arabic. But that fixed star has a lot to do with calling the attraction of good supportive powers to bless ritual and magical workings. And I just want to emphasize this, even if you're like brand new to ritual magic or any kind of spell work in that way, keep it simple, but do something. The peak conjunction is at 3:55 p.m. Eastern time on June 9th. And so it's a great moment if you have the space to bless a talisman, to bless something, to do some ritual work, or even just to sit in presence and receive their grace, right? And if you can see the night sky where you are, pay attention over the coming nights, because you'll actually, I saw it the other night and I burst into tears. I walked outside as the full moon was rising and I looked to the south and you could see, well, it's like southwest, but you could see Jupiter and Venus coming closer and closer together in the night sky. And it's stunning. It's really something to behold. They're the two planetary bodies in the sky that aren't shimmering, because planets reflect back steady, consistent light of the sun, and stars shimmer. So you'll know them by their steadfastness. But man, just seeing them together too, it's like, in and of itself, that stargazing, that relationship is what our ancestors were doing to experience their grace, and then to start to realize like, wow, there's some pretty big energy coming off these planets, or whatever they thought that they were. I know there's stories that, they thought they were like, at least in my tradition, other fires, other ancestral fires in other parts of the universe. So spend time. That's the whole point. Like, make space. That moment, June 9th, that's the gas station in the middle of the desert. That's it. Fill up. And as some of you are aware, I will be holding a donation-based, anyone can attend community-wide ritual on June 9th. It's called Milk and Honey, due to the very specific spell that I was given to share. And yeah, it's beautiful. I'm excited for getting to do it with as many people as possible, like really accumulating and cultivating as much energy as we can on that day of prayer, of intention, and sending it out where it needs to go. So I'll put details for that in the show notes, but join us if you can. It'll be on Zoom from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully that's a sweet spot for most folks around the world to be able to join us. And we'll be doing some, it'll all, like the whole 2 hours will be guided, but there'll be space for you to be in your own practice too, to hone that energy, because it'll actually be during the peak of the conjunction on purpose. So yeah, join us if you can. All right, 2 other things I want to mention for the rest of June. The first being that we have, this is what I'll say. The first half of June, drink it in, baby. That's where the sweetness is. That's especially like the first 2 weeks until the new moon on June 14th. That new moon is a threshold of the month where things tip into a new territory that's a little bit more challenging, that is like starting to curve us into the second wave of the log ride, where there's a whole other trajectory. Lots of change after that tipping point of the new moon in Gemini on June 14th. So from now until then, highly recommend, as the moon wanes, that you're harvesting those blessings. And from there, Mercury will enter the shadow of its retrograde period, which will station officially retrograde at the very end of the month. I'll talk about that in a minute. But from the new moon in Gemini on June 14th to the full moon occurring at the very, very end of June, that's where things start to shift gears. And we're preparing to leave the gas station and head deeper into the desert, if we're going with this metaphor. So June 29th, almost the very, very end of the month, we have a full moon in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn and Aries. I'll talk more about that as we get closer to the end of the month on the Week Ahead podcast. The next day, June 30th, I'm sharing this because these are some big dates of the year. June 30th, Jupiter will enter Leo, which is a whole new year cycle with Jupiter. This is the moment where Jupiter leaves the exaltation place. That's going to be a little jarring. That is a significant ingress right there. And the same day, June 30th, the very last day of the month, is when Mercury stations retrograde at almost the exact degree, 1 degree away from where the Venus-Jupiter conjunction was occurring on the 9th. Right? So we have a little like, okay, that bounty, that beauty, that boon and blessing, bring it in on June 9th. Gets a callback moment, but it's a little different of a vibe because it's the point where Mercury will station retrograde in Cancer, just 1 degree past that. It's pretty exacting, right? And so then we're in 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde. So technically, the new moon in Gemini on June 14th, that's right around when Mercury's preparing to station. So that shadow period is where things start to get a little warpy. So first half of June, love it. Take it in, soak it in. Second half of June, hold on to your butts. 10 points for Gryffindor if you understand that reference. I'm sure some people do. Let's see what else I want to share. Yeah, I think the only other thing I want to say is that the biggest message that came through when I was divining about the month of June and the month ahead was that the biggest sentiment was you have no idea what's waiting for you. You have no idea what is around that corner. And usually that's a very daunting thing to sit with. Usually that's like a recipe for a freeze state because it's scary, the unknown. We're not really well designed for it. But when that phrase was spoken to me as I was divining, you have no idea what's waiting for you. You've got no idea what's around that corner and where you're headed. It was meant to be incredibly encouraging. And it's such a knife's edge with that because our mind can go in one of two directions. Worst case scenario, I have no idea what's around, worst case scenario, catastrophizing, or incredible, unbound faith in the unknown, in the trust fall. And that's how it was meant. It was the sense of believe you me, child. There good things await. But you actually have to be open to that. Because if you're bound up in catastrophizing and your system does not believe in a good outcome and it's not open to receiving it or seeing the possibility that it could be right around that corner, you'll miss it. Or you'll misinterpret it and you'll fumble, and it gets so sticky so quickly. And I really felt in that message, it was like, oh, I got to get clear and get right and spend some time with the mind work of noticing where I catastrophize and where I go to worst case scenario immediately. That's blocking the whole flow of grace from reaching me. It's always mind work. And I actually have to create the conditions in myself for that saying to be a good thing. You have no idea what's waiting for you. Like, I have to create the conditions for that to land in my system as if I'm a kid on Christmas Eve night. You know, like the orientation of like, wow, so many blessings await. And I actually have to be open to believing in that unfolding. If I'm not open to it, my whole system, that's tricky. That's where we get stuck and bound up in our own. That to me is like Eight of Swords material. So there's a little bit I feel, and I pulled some cards again, just, and it's like the same thing. Like, our work this month is in actually orienting towards grace and possibility and letting the good things reach us, letting them in, being able to receive them, being able to sit in the seat of possibility and optimism, dare I say, being optimistic about a good outcome. And knowing that right there is everything. That's more likely to actually create that congruent experience. I think a lot about faith and how it's not folly to believe in a good outcome. I wrote about this on the week ahead. Like, that's the magician's tool. It came up so much with the full blue moon, ruled by an exalted Jupiter. So much of our conditioning tells us that, at least I'll speak for myself, so much of my conditioning told me, and my very influenceable Jupiter in Capricorn natally, that I need to see it to believe it. And there's an overdependence on making good things happen with my own hands. I don't actually trust very much. I've struggled with this my whole life. I don't actually have a lot of faith that if I don't do it myself, I'll be taken care of. And I meet people that have a lot of healthy Jupiterian energy, and they like fucking make luck, excuse my French, but they're out here believing in a good outcome and then creating that reality. And shit just works out for them. I've ached for that because I am so internally blocked and deeply conditioned to believe I have to do it myself. I have to make my own luck. In a way that's like actually very individualistic. I'm not even making room for something bigger that loves me to support me. That's the work right there. It's like actually believing. Yeah, belief is such a tricky word. For me, it's like that essence of faith that is something that I cannot convince you of, but I cannot deny of myself. That requires us to be in relationship with the mystery and be paying attention closely enough to actually see the hand of grace within it all. I have spent most of my life not looking for that and not paying attention. And so I function from me, myself, and I, rather than me being afforded so many blessings by unseen hands that love me. It's still like confronting to hear myself say and actually really have evidence that that is real. It's softening my little Jupiter in Capricorn stoicism. Is to be in relationship with the larger ecosystem of benevolence. that moves towards the will to live. That is the creative impulse. And when I say creative, it's like life affirming, producing life. And so that is our work. And that is especially, I feel, this month of June, to be open to that support and to pay attention, to not miss it, to see when things are working in our favor. And to remember to say thank you in those moments. Because so much of what we're afforded in this life is not of our own doing. So I'll leave it there. And yeah, if you want to hear me muse more about all of this, the full recording is on SUBSTACK. A totally different one because I didn't video record it. But yeah, hope to see some of you on June 9th if you can join us. And otherwise, I hope that you find ways to take it in and to make pockets where you can let yourself feel the benevolence of those forces that adore you. Take care, my friends.